Let's have a warm welcome for Clarita from Synergy Title and Escrow, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Clarita. We are ready to hear your wisdom. Oh, and you're on mute. I'm sorry. Unmute yourself.
Okay.
There you are. Hello. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm ready for the wisdom.
Let me put my presentation, right?
Yes, absolutely. We're ready to hear what's going on in your world. We want to know how you are just the best at what you do.
Perfect.
Which we know here, but we want everyone else to know.
Perfect. Okay, so just to confirm, you're able to see my screen, right?
Yes, looks great.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Clarita Wiener. I'm one of the owners of Synergy Title and Escrow. With my business partner Isabel Galvis. We've been doing title for more than 10 years. We used to work for a different title company, but then we decided to go ahead and open up our title company, which is Synergy Title and Escrow. And we've been doing with our company, we've been for 2.5 years. Okay, but we've been doing title for a lot more than that. We've been working with Ryan and Anish for more than 8 years. We've done the majority of the short sales for them and of course their students. And we have built a very good relationship through all these years that we've been in business since we started working in our previous title company. What else can I say about us? We're very, very excited to be part of BRIA. They've always supported us. We've always done whatever that is in our power to support them. And we love having this relationship that has been grown throughout the years. And we continue, like we hope to continue to working together and doing all of their deals. We do the short sales and the majority, and sometimes like we're able to do the A to B, which is the short sales, sometimes B to C, and sometimes we have even had a C to D closing. So we're very excited to be part of BRIA since they have so much to offer, and since we've been able to learn so much from them and doing business in all, you know, in with them all together. So
thank you. That's beautiful.
No, thank you. So today we wanted to talk a little bit about things that can come up in a closing and what we can do to avoid them in order to have a much smoother transaction. Okay, because that's what we all want. Get into contract, but the most important thing is to get it closed. So we're gonna give you like some scenarios that we have faced with transactions, not only with BRIA transactions, but in general, to make sure we avoid them and how we can do to not get to closing and have this type of situations at the last minute. Okay, so we're gonna go over different scenarios and then we're gonna have like a break, like for questions, and then we'll go on to different situations that we face with short sales specifically.
Awesome.
Okay.
That's so awesome. Thank you, Clarita.
No,
We're excited.
No, I'm excited as well. So if you have any questions, if you want to write them down in the chat, or if you want to just write them down and then just wait for that break, and we can go over all of your questions, that would be great. Okay.
Yes, our attendees know we put the questions in the Q&A section. Everybody knows it, so they don't get lost in the chat. So please be sure to put the questions in the Q&A section, and then we'll dive into those when we can. I appreciate your help, everybody.
Perfect. So Okay, this is the phase that we'll get when we get to that closing and we see that something came up and the closing is gonna be delayed or canceled. So we don't want to see these faces. What we want is to see smiles after all of the closings, okay? Okay, so let's start with scenario number 1, okay? Pictures IDs. In Synergy, and I guess in the majority of the title companies will always request a picture ID, okay? Sometimes you think, oh, I can give this in the closing. Why will they be requesting it up front and so on? So I'm gonna tell you why it's important to provide a picture ID at the beginning of the transaction, okay? So let's go with scenario number 1. Maria Smith is selling her property to Brian Weiss. The contract was prepared showing her name as Maria Smith. Maria did not provide her valid picture ID until the day of closing. When she arrived at the closing agent was presented with a picture ID showing her name as Maria Burroughs Smith. Okay? So what can happen? In the best case scenario, when the closing agent receives that ID and see that Burroughs is there and that all of our documents do not come with that Burroughs, it's gonna be a red flag. So what's gonna happen? We need to go back to our underwriter, let them know that the correct name is Maria Burroughs, and they do a name search, okay? When they do the name search, in the best case scenario, nothing will happen. That Maria Burroughs is clear, okay? So we will just need to prepare an affidavit called the also known as, which is the AKA. That affidavit will be signed at closing, the same name affidavit, and they can sign. It will take like 1 hour, 30 minutes to 1 hour of a delay, but it's not a big of a deal. Now, what happens in the worst case scenario? They do that name search and a lien comes up under Maria Burroughs. What's gonna happen in that case? It's gonna say that we're not gonna be able to close because there's a lien and the name matches with that lien. So at that point, since we're already in the closing table, we're not gonna be able to close. We're gonna need to get that closing postponed, okay? And we don't want that. If we would have had the picture ID from the beginning, that name search could have been done correctly from the beginning, and this could have been avoided. So this is why sometimes you think, okay, no, the picture ID, why would they need it? I'll just bring it up to closing, that's it. So we're just bringing these things up. So when a picture ID is requested, for you to understand why the picture ID is important, especially in the seller side, okay? And the same, if the buyer is getting a loan with a bank, it's also very important because all of the names need to match with the lender, with the title, and the title commitment. So if there's any discrepancy between the lender and the title, that will also be an issue when it comes to closing. Scenario number 2, tenants, okay? It's very, very, very important for the title company to know if the property that is being sold has a tenant in it and if they're gonna stay after closing or if they're going to vacate the property before closing, okay? Why? Because if there is a tenant that's gonna stay in the property, there's some prorations that need to be done with the HUD. So let me go to scenario number 2 and then we can talk through, talk about it. So listing agent John McDonald is closing a transaction in 2 days from today. when he requested a preliminary HUD or CD, which is the closing disclosure that it's used when the buyer is getting a loan, he noticed that the rent and the deposits were not included in the HUD. At this point, he notified the closing agent that there is a tenant on the property that is staying after closing. So in the best case scenario, we get a copy of the lease, but a copy of the lease is not sufficient. Why? Because there could be things in the lease that are not up to date. So the title company always requests a document that it's called a tenant estoppel letter. The tenant estoppel letter is a document that we send that needs to be signed by both the landlord and the tenant. And in this type of document, the tenant estoppel letter, we're going to be able to confirm how much do they pay, if they're up to date with their payments, because sometimes, yeah, the lease can say, okay, they pay $1,000 a month, they're due the first of each month, but how is the title company supposed to know if the tenant is current or not? So that's why a tenant estoppel letter is requested to make sure that the tenant is up to date, or if the tenant is delinquent on their payments, we can see there that the last payment was done in April and we're in June. So another thing that we're gonna see in the tenant estoppel letter is how many deposits do they have. Sometimes they can write in the lease, no, first month, last month, and security deposit was given at the time the lease was signed. But maybe while the tenant moved in, they came up to an agreement with the landlord and they said, you know what, we're just gonna request first month and security deposit. So they never gave last month. So this type of things are gonna be notated in this tenant estoppel letter, and the title company will be able to do those credits in the HUD reflecting the correct deposits and prorations. Okay, because if a tenant gave a last month deposit, that needs to be credited to the new buyer. Okay, the same as the security deposit, because when the tenant moves out, the tenant is going to want to have their deposit back. So that needs to be prorated at the time of closing. So in the best case scenario, the title company requests a copy of the tenant estoppel letter and the lease. Okay, and the tenant was in town, the tenant was able to cooperate, and the tenant will get the tenant estoppel letter signed immediately. So it's not a big of a deal. We'll just do the changes in the HUD and send it again for approval, and we're gonna be able to close. In the worst case scenario, the tenant is not cooperating, the tenant is out of town, the tenant received it but doesn't have a scanner to scan it back. So at this time, the closing will need to get postponed. Okay, because without that, we're not going to be able to do the correct prorations in the HUD. Now, another important things to keep in mind: if the buyer is getting a loan and the closing is getting extended, then what's going to happen? The interest rate, usually they put a lock on it, and sometimes that lock gets expired. So if we don't close the day that the closing was supposed to be, that interest rate lock can expire, and that interest can go up, and that's going to affect the buyer. Now, also, if it's a finance transaction and they're getting, let's say, an FHA loan, sometimes the bank will not accept that a tenant is in place. So all these little details need to be addressed from the beginning of the transaction to avoid these things of happening at the end. If a bank doesn't know that the property is rented and we send them a CD 2 days after closing reflecting rent prorations and deposits, that might be an issue for the bank as well. So if everybody in the transaction is aware of, and it's like transparent of what's going on, or if there's tenants, if there's not tenants, if the property is vacant, we're gonna have a much smoother closing at the end and avoid hiccups of not being able to close. Okay, scenario number 3, Ferpta. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Ferpta and how many
Let us
of
know in
you.
the chat if you are.
I'm
If you're
sorry?
familiar with Ferpta, yeah, if you're familiar with it, say yes. If you're not, say no.
Exactly.
Let us know in the chat.
Perfect.
So we know how to explain it and who's, So Carol says no, no. Okay, so a lot of people are unfamiliar.
Okay.
All right, so this was gonna be really helpful for you guys.
Okay, so Ferpta. What is Ferpta? There's a complete separate presentation only that talks about Ferpta, but to make it short and not bore you with Ferpta information, I'm gonna tell you like the basics. When the seller is a foreign national, okay, even if it's an even if the LLC is formed here in Florida, but the members of that LLC are foreign national, there's a red flag that the title company will need to review to make sure to see if Ferpta will apply or not. Okay, what is Ferpta? Ferpta is it's a law that makes the title company withhold at closing 15% of the purchase price for any foreign national seller. Okay, of course there are some there's an exception to this rule, and is if the property is being sold for less than $300,000 and the buyer is going to be living in the property. Okay, if the property is $150,000 but is an investor, the person buying it, Ferpta will anyways apply. Okay, so the seller needs to be aware that if you're a seller or you're working with a seller that is foreign national, even if it's an LLC, but that was formed here in the United States, but the members are from out of the country, Ferpta may apply and the title company may need to return that 15% at closing. Okay, so let's go over the requirement. So closing agent Peter White was drafting the seller docs 2 days before closing. He noticed the closing information sheet was missing. When he followed up with the listing agent, he was informed seller was a foreign national. So this is another thing to keep in mind. I'm not sure if all the title company does it, but I'm sure they do. But let's say in Synergy at the beginning of the process, we request a copy of their ID, but we always send out seller's information sheet to be completed by the seller. And in this information sheet, we're going to be able to see if the seller is foreign national, if they're buying through an LLC, who are the members of the LLC, and if they have a social security or not. If they don't have a social security, then it's an alert that Ferpta may apply. But if these information sheets are not received by the title company, then it's going to be very difficult for the title company to know this type of things at the beginning of the transaction. We're going to notice it at the end when it can be too late. So in the best case scenario, the Ferpta exception rules applies, which means that the property is being sold for less than $300,000 and that the buyer is living in the property. Again, I repeat, for that rule, it cannot be one or the other. It has to be both, okay? It has to be property less than $300,000 and buyer living in the property for at least 50% or more for the next 2 years of the year. So if it's a vacation home where they say that they're going to be 6 months here and 6 months out and not there, the exception can apply. But if it's gonna be rented, it doesn't apply, okay? And it can be by the buyer or a family member. Now, what happens? If the Ferpta rules applies, they're gonna need to sign an affidavit at closing saying that the buyer is gonna be living in the property. And the buyer signs that affidavit, okay? So if these Ferpta rules apply, very easy, the buyer will prepare that affidavit, the buyer will sign the affidavit at closing. Now, the other best scenario is that the seller was aware that Ferpta would apply, and they have already been working with a CPA on preparing the Ferpta forms. What happens? When Ferpta applies, the seller needs to contact an accountant. The accountant will go over the Ferpta rules and the Ferpta documents, because there are some forms that need to be completed. Once those documents get completed, those forms are sent to the IRS. If the IRS receives those forms before closing, that 15% of the Ferpta withholding can be kept in the escrow of the title company doing the closing, okay? Now, if those documents are not completed before closing, then those forms need to be sent to the IRS. After closing, the title company has 21 days from the day of closing to send those documents, those forms, together with the 15% withholding, okay? Now, it's much better to hold that money in escrow, because once the IRS reviews those documents and get back to the title, to the seller, the time is much faster. So during once the title company receives notification from the IRS, the title company can immediately refund that check to the seller. Sometimes if that check is sent to the IRS, it takes a longer time. Sorry. I had somebody here saying hi, I'm sorry. Then that money is sent, if the money is sent to the IRS, then it's gonna take much longer for the IRS to return that money to the seller, okay? Now, in the worst case scenario, Ferpta exception rules, let me just move this over so I can read, I'm sorry. Okay, so Ferpta exception rules does not apply. CPA will have to work on getting the Ferpta forms completed, and closing will be delayed. Remember that most of these cases, when Ferpta applies, the seller is out of the country. So, or maybe they're here or whatever, but they still need to get together with an accountant, complete those documents, sign those documents, and send them to the IRS. So we need to make sure that these documents are prepared before closing, and to make sure that if Ferpta applies or it doesn't apply, to have it in the title company's head prior to the day of closing to avoid any delays.
Awesome. So far we've learned about 3 different scenarios. I know I see a lot of students from our mentor program in here. I would love to know if anybody has, just type it in the chat, or if you're even not a student and you're an active real estate investor, let us know. Have you had any deals closed? Yes or no? Go ahead and type that in the chat right now, so we know who our audience is. If you've had a deal closed, say yes. If not, say no. Okay, some people are saying no, yes. Okay, Michael, yes. And if you said yes, have all of your deals gone smoothly? If they've gone smoothly, put yeah. They've gone smooth, no issues, no bumps in the road. Let's get to know our audience. Okay, so a lot of people haven't closed yet. Well, I hope it's not because there was a sticky scenario like the ones that we're talking about. Yes, thank heavens. Oh yeah. I'm hoping that wasn't a bad situation. If it was, let us know what the issue was. maybe Clarita will go over that issue.
Yeah.
Still working. Okay, awesome. Alrighty, so let's hope that you never have to go through any of these, but go ahead, Clarita. Let's talk about some more issues that we can avoid.
Okay, perfect. I'm a commercial lender and I'd like to know if we would be able to review this recording later. Yeah, right?
Yeah, we will. We send our recording to our marketing team, which cleans it up for us, and it'll be on our YouTube channel in the next few days. So usually between 48 and 72 hours, you'll see our YouTube replays. I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the chat right now. Okay. There you go. So you're going to see our YouTube channel there. You'll see all of our past recordings, and in a few days, you'll see this one. So you'll be able to refer to it at any time, but still definitely take notes, because who knows, you may come up with something a little bit tricky and sticky, but you'll be able to handle it because of the amazing work Clarita is doing and the amazing knowledge she's sharing. So thank you so much, Clarita.
Absolutely.
No,
and just remember, guys, like the purpose of these live webinars are to ask questions. This is one-on-one time with Clarita. Like, we don't have this. Clarita's very busy. She's a very, very busy woman. So we got to take advantage of this time with her. So ask your questions, put them in the Q&A. I already see some lining up. We'll keep diving in these scenarios and we will definitely answer those questions for you all. So don't hesitate. This is your time.
Perfect. Okay, so now let me ask. I see that some people are still prospecting. I see some people already have done like some closings. So everybody knows what an addendum to the contract is. Yes, no. Let's see. Let me open it up.
A lot of yeses. Okay, that's good.
Perfect. Okay, so let me just go over why is it important that if an addendum to a closing is signed, why is it important for the title company to receive those addendums, and if there's a lender involved, why is it important for that lender to receive those addendums? Okay, so let's go with the scenario. Closing agent and lender are clear to close. Closer finalizes a CD with the lender. I'm just gonna say the CD is the closing disclosure. Okay, a closing disclosure is used when it's a loan transaction. And lender sends it to the buyer. Buyer signs the CD and returns it to the lender. When it's a loan transaction, there's a rule called the treat rule, where the lender needs to provide the buyer 3 days in advance the CD to get it disclosed. Okay, this only applies when the bank is not a private lender. If it's a private lender, this doesn't apply. This only applies like for big banks. Okay. Closing agents sends the ALTA form to the parties for review and approval, and then buyer agent realizes he forgot to send an addendum reflecting a buyer's credit. Okay, so of course the title company didn't include that credit in the numbers, in the final numbers, and this can become an issue. Let me tell you why. Oops. Uh-oh, technical problems.
Okay, it happens. Next.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. There you go.
Sorry. Okay, so in the best scenario, it was an addendum to credit for a closing cost provided to the title company and to the lender. Okay, so the addendum gets sent to the lender, it gets sent to the title company. The title company updates the CD or the HUD, sends it to the party. the lender in this case doesn't have any issues because it was a credit for closing costs. So the lender doesn't have any problems with that, and the lender approves it. Okay. Now, what happens in a worst case scenario? It was an addendum either for credits and the buyer was getting a loan and the bank only allowed certain amount of credit to go to the buyer, so they're not approving any more credits, or it was an addendum for repairs. Okay, when there's an addendum because something went wrong in an inspection or something like that, in those cases, the banks can give a little bit more of a problem because they're gonna say, okay, if the property has issues, I'm not gonna lend money to this type of properties. So they're gonna send the addendum and the file back to underwriting, and then that's gonna have a big delay on closing because now the underwriter for the bank needs to approve those credits. Okay. So what happens if the lender's underwriter says, okay, I cannot approve this addendum, we're gonna need to send another appraisal. So now they send another appraisal, and of course, this is gonna have a big delay in the closing. Okay. Now, not only if the property is if the buyer is financing, it's important to have the addendums. Also, if there's an addendum because there was a person added in title, because at the beginning only Clarita Wiener was buying the property, but then I said, okay, no, I want to buy it with my sister. So they do an addendum, but that addendum was never sent to the title company. Now that's going to have a delay in closing as well, because they're going to say, okay, but how come I received the title, the HUD, and I don't see the other name in the HUD? Well, we didn't know that that other name had to be in title. So now what happens also, the title company will need to do a name search for that other person that wants to be entitled. So all this type of situations need to be disclosed both to a lender and to the title company to make sure that everything gets approved by the different parties, and not only approved but reviewed, and for the title company and for the lender to everybody be on the same page. Okay, on the same page. Okay, this one is very, very common when there's a power of attorney that is being used. Okay, so let me read through this scenario and then we'll go through real life scenarios. So seller Laura Donalds signs the contract and leaves a power of attorney to the son because she will be traveling out of the country. Listing agent confirms to the seller without consulting with the closing agent that the seller can use the power of attorney, and the seller says, okay, I feel comfortable now, I'm gonna leave the country. When the closing agent starts coordinating closing, she's presented with that power of attorney. What can happen? What can happen if it's one day before closing and there's a power of attorney? We always say that when there's a power of attorney, of course, we need to know from the beginning, because that power of attorney, if it wasn't prepared by the title company doing the closing, the underwriter needs to approve it, because there's certain language that needs to go with those power of attorneys to be able to sign closing documents. Okay, so if there was, in the best case scenario, power of attorney will get submitted to the underwriter, it was well prepared, they'll approve it, and we can confirm closing. Now, if that power of attorney gets rejected, then in the best case scenario, we'll send the documents to the seller anywhere that he is. He can go to a US embassy, he can get it signed. And nowadays there's RUN. What's RUN? online notarization. That before it wasn't allowed. Now, since last year, beginning of last year, online notarization is approved. Now, there's certain requirements for that online notarization to be valid, but it's an option if the seller is out of the country, and we can arrange those online notarizations to get those documents signed. However, if it's a buyer, the one who gave that power of attorney, because the buyer is not going to be present to sign, if it's a cash deal, no problem, because we can get all the documents signed online. No notarization is needed. So when it's a cash deal, no problem. But when it's a loan, that's when it becomes a problem. Because if it's a loan that's getting signed by a power of attorney, that power of attorney will also need to get approved, not only by the underwriter of the title company, it will need to get approved by the underwriter of the lender as well. Okay, so, and the majority of the banks, well, not the majority, all of the banks do not accept online notarization. So they're still behind. So if it's a loan, the bank will not accept online notarization, so this will not be an option. This will only be an option for the sellers. And of course, there's some requirements that the sellers will need to meet in order to do this online notarization. So in the worst case scenario, the power of attorney gets rejected by the underwriter. Seller documents will need to be signed at an American embassy. Sometimes they're in a city where there's no American embassy. So they will need to travel to the closest city where there is an American embassy, Now, sometimes they'll give appointments for the next day. Now, I've heard with COVID, those appointments are given like for months. So we want to avoid this from happening. They can take more than a week. And of course, if we don't have the documents signed and notarized, we won't be able to close. Another option when the parties are not here is to get the documents. I'm talking about seller documents. Will be to get the documents notarized by a local notary. Let's say if they're in Argentina, they can sign with an Argentinian notary, but it's going to be a little costly, because once the documents get here, that stamp of that Argentinian notary will need to get translated to English. So each translation costs money. So we just want to make sure that if a party is not going to be here for closing, that the title company knows from the beginning to so we can help them, route them to the best decision and the best way for them to have everything ready to avoid delays at closing. Another option, if it's a seller, is they can always leave those seller documents signed prior of them traveling, because those documents will be kept in escrow and we won't do anything with those documents until the day of closing. So that's another option. So there are different options that we can give to the parties if they're not going to be here the day of closing. We just need to know ahead of time to avoid knowing the day of closing or one day before closing and closing getting delayed. Okay. So before we go into short sales, let's go over like the questions that we have so far. And I also wanted to share a little bit, share like the prize that we're gonna give for everybody attending this webinar. And anybody that uses us, that comes from this webinar, we're gonna waive their closing fee for their first deal. Okay, so anybody that sends us a file that comes from this webinar, their closing fee will be waived. And for the, for you to be able to experience the closing with our title company. Okay.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Clarita. That is huge. Everyone, we just put it in the chat. We'll be letting you know again in the thank you email, just reminding you. That's huge. $675
exactly.
value.
That's what I was gonna say. Our closing fee is $675. For those investors, of course, we have special fees because we know that investors are gonna be sending us business more often. So of course that fee will go down. But yeah, that's a 675 value that we're willing to waive. And in order for you to get to know us and experience the closing with us.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
So let's see. We do have a question here from Omar. Do you do double closings? I'm pretty sure you mentioned that already.
Yes, we do double closings. We have done a lot double closings for Bria. So yes, we are very we know a lot about the double closings. We're very experienced on that. So yeah, definitely yes.
Yes, that's so important, guys, because there's so many title companies that are not real estate investor friendly. So it's really awesome that we have synergy here. There's some companies that don't really even know what a double closing is. There's some companies that you have to walk them through every single step of the process. With Synergy, it's not like that. They have it under control. They're going to handle it. You don't have to worry whether or not your double close is going to go through, if you're a wholesaler, if you're looking into that. So that's really important. Yep.
Diana, I love this question. She said that she would like a cheat sheet of the best worst scenarios. Well, we will see this webinar posted on our YouTube channel. You can definitely review that. And then I will ask Clarita if she is willing to share this PowerPoint with us, so I can share that with you all as well.
Of course, that's what I was gonna say, that we can go ahead and share this PowerPoint presentation. I can send it to you, and then you can send it to everyone. Mm-hmm.
Amazing. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I have somebody here who says, do you have addendums to cover investor in case either A to B or B to C doesn't close? I don't know.
No.
I don't know that.
Well, no, this type of things, like this wouldn't be like an addendum, because we don't have like actual forms, since we're just a title company. We're not like attorneys. We do have attorneys that we work with, that we can always refer you to them, or if something happens, we can always contact those attorneys to see what would be the best scenario to help our client, of course, but it wouldn't be through an addendum.
Thought so. Alrighty, somebody is asking if you have an office in Orlando. I don't think so.
Yeah. No, we don't have an office in Orlando. However, we do closings all over the state, so we can always coordinate your signing in Orlando with no problem at all. We'll send out a mobile closer, or if it's documents that don't need to be notarized, then everything can be done online.
Beautiful. Love that. Love the technology these days.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So Adriana, yes, we did put their info in the chat. We will put their info again in the chat for you all.
Yep. Yeah, you'll see it. I just put it just about a minute ago. So you'll see it right there at the bottom.
Amazing. So we have someone asking, do you work with multifamily investor deals? And
Yes.
then they also asked about, how wide the range is for you. So you are on the whole state of Florida. So
correct.
That's awesome.
Correct. We work all over the state of Florida, and what was the other part of the question of the Florida?
They mentioned, do you work with multifamily investor deals?
We do. We close all type of deals. We close multifamily, single homes, condos, commercials. So yes. Mhm.
Amazing. Wow. So it says here, Bruce, bringing up a personal scenario. In November, we are going to refinance a condo we own in Margate. Would you waive a closing fees? Would the waive of the closing fees apply to that?
Yes, it will. However, like it would be only our closing fee, like the lender's title insurance, owner title insurance, like we're not waiving all of the fees, we're just waiving our closing fee. But yes, it will apply. Mhm.
Great. All right, David here is asking for average time for no problem closings.
Okay, if it's a cash deal and all of our reports come back clear, we can close in, it really depends on the city, because there's some, as you know, we need to request always a title search and a lien search. The title search, we usually get it between 5 business days, more or less. However, the lien search, it depends on the city. Some cities take 5 days, 7 days, but then we have other cities that take 15 business days. So it really depends on how fast we get those reports back, but we should be able to close a cash transaction between two to 3 weeks.
Awesome, good stuff. All right, last question for now. Don't forget, everybody, put your questions in the Q&A section. I see some lingering in the chat, so perfect, awesome. I already see you put that in there, perfect. So last question for now. Do you do separate closing docs for seller and buyer to hide wholesalers' profit, or do sellers and buyers get identical closing documents?
Yeah. We can do like the closing of a buyer in one side, we can do the closing of the seller in another side, but the document that they're gonna sign is gonna be the same one. So anything like, there's really nothing, like we cannot hide anything unless it's done outside of closing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, everybody. We'll go
There's
back
one
to.
more.
Okay, let's see.
Are you
Oh, I
only in
see.
the state of Florida or part of a nationwide network? Okay, we're only licensed for the state of Florida. However, we worked with an underwriter that is nationwide. It's Fidelity National Title. So if you ever need like a closing outside of Florida, we can definitely refer you like through with our underwriter.
Amazing. Oh, what can't she do, everybody? Okay, I'm excited to talk about short sales. I know that you are, I think, our main source of title company for short sales. I don't think we go to anyone else for our short sales. So yes, tell us more. I'm excited.
Perfect. So let me just close this out and let's go with short sales. Okay, so we've been doing short sales for, like remember like in 2007, 2008 when the market collapsed, short sale was the boom. And in the title company that we used to work for, we said, okay, closings are not happening. The market has just fallen. We need to find a way to survive. And the way that the company survived at that time was short sales. Short sales was something like very, very major. We used to, I remember Isabel and myself, we used to travel like all over Florida, giving out seminars on short sales, on what is a short sale, how could a homeowner start working with us to do a short sale instead of just letting the property foreclose and lose the property. So we started like studying a lot on short sales. We started becoming very familiar with how every bank would work on short sales. We created our package of short sales, and like we got to know like every bank and what every bank required in order to process the short sale. So we are very, very experienced on short sales. Like I said, we've been doing them since 2007. I know the market has changed a little bit since 2007, but short sales there's still a lot of short sales out there. And we know that there are more coming, especially with the prices like they are right now. So a short sale is definitely a solution for a homeowner that is struggling on doing their mortgage payments, because it's their opportunity to not just let the property go into a sell date. And because if the property goes on foreclosure, their credit will get much more affected. They won't be able to buy a property like in the next 7 years. They'll still be responsible of their debt with the bank. However, if the homeowner decides to short sell, it's an agreement that they're going to be having with the bank, where it says that the bank agrees to pay off their mortgage for less than the amount that is owed. Okay. And what happens? Yes, their credit will get affected, but not as much as if they just let the property foreclose. They can buy again like in 1 year and a half, 2 years. And that deficiency, which is the difference of what they owe and what the bank received, will get waived 99.9% of the time. So definitely to short sell is a much, much better solution to just sit down there and just wait for the bank to come and take the property away from the sellers. Okay. Now, when a seller is ready to do a short sale, then that's why we're here for. And we're ready to receive all of your short sale files and to process them from the beginning to the closing. Okay. We process our short sales at no cost, at free. The only requirement that we have is for us to be the closing title company, and we get paid at closing. Okay. So let me ask you, how many of you have worked with short sales?
Type it in the chat, guys. Or if you don't know what a short sale is, let us know as well. If you're unfamiliar, we can explain it in about a minute.
Mm-hmm. Are you?
All right, so a lot of people are saying no. Carol, she's a student. Awesome. She's saying yes. Gary says yes. Never did a short sale. All right.
Okay. So let me go really quick on what is a short sale. So, okay.
Eldon's already explaining it.
Yeah, I see. Okay. So basically a short sale is when the bank approves to settle the debt for less than the amount that is owed. Okay. So let me give you an example. If I have a mortgage and I owe $300,000 because I bought the property when the market was in a boom, but right now my property is not worth the $300,000. It's only worth $200,000. So I do a short sale. The bank will approve to settle for those $200,000 or maybe a little bit less, and that difference of $100,000 will be waived, but I will have to let the property go. Like I cannot still live in the property. That's the only thing. But of course, you do a short sale, and the majority of the time, this is for people that are behind on their payments. So they're receiving letters that they're gonna foreclose. So a short sale is a very good option. Now, if they're not behind on their payments, but they still want to try to do a short sale, we can definitely try. Okay, we have had short sales approved without the homeowner being late on their payments. Okay, just so you know. Okay, so it's not a must. The majority of the people that goes through short sale are because they're behind, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to be behind in order to do a short sale. Okay, Now, the bank is going to request to see like the hardship letter, why couldn't they continue doing a short sale or continue doing their payments, or if they're up to date with their payments, then show the bank why they want to do a short sale. It's either because, you know, they want to move to another state, or they bought the property when the property was worth much more than what it is today, or they already know that in 1 month they're going to stay without a job. Whatever the situation is, we need to show the bank a hardship. They're also going to ask like for financials. They're going to ask like for the purchase contract. They're going to ask for an income statement, like to make sure that all of their income is not enough like to pay their mortgage. So there are different documents that the bank is going to require in order for them to review the short sale. Okay. So again, technical issues. Okay. So what's going to happen when you submit a short sale to our company? Okay. We're going to request, again, an information sheet, okay, to make sure who the owner of the property is, what's the bank that we're going to be working with, okay? If there is an association to the property, like a homeowners association. Why? Because at closing, we're gonna negotiate with a short sale with the lender, with the short sale lender, and once we get the approval, that file is gonna go to closing. Okay, when that file goes to closing, we order a title search. Okay, and the title search will show us if there's any mortgages on the file. So most of the time, it's gonna come up with the same information that was given to us at the beginning. However, we have had a lot of situations where we negotiate, let's say, with Bank of America. Okay, we get the approval letter, we say, yay, we got the approval letter, we're gonna send the file to closing. We send the file to closing, we order the title search, and guess what? It was Bank of America, but apart from Bank of America, there was a second mortgage, let's say with Wells Fargo. Guess what? We're not going to be able to close that short sale because both mortgages will need to get satisfied before we can do a closing, before we're able like to transfer title from one owner to another. So we have had a lot of situations where the disclosure of all the existing mortgages has not been done. So that's why it's very important for us as the title company negotiating the short sale that we know of this type of things from the beginning. If you have a homeowner that tells you, I think I only had one mortgage, but I'm not sure, let us know and we'll run a title search from the beginning to make sure these things don't happen at the end, okay? Same thing with associations. Sometimes we receive a file and they tell us, yes, there is an association, but the seller hasn't been paying their mortgage, but they have been paying their association dues. Perfect. We process the short sale, we get the short sale approved, we send the file to closing, we order the title commitment, only one mortgage came up. Perfect, we're good. But we order the estoppel letter from the association, and guess what? They do have an association, but they weren't current on their payments. They owe $5,000. You know what's gonna happen? We're not gonna be able to close. Sorry, the only way that we're gonna be able to close would be to go back to the short sale lender to see if they would be willing to pay those $5,000. And I'm putting $5,000 being very how do you say it? Like very it went out of my mind. Like very reasonable, because sometimes we get not 5,000, 20,000, 25,000, and it's a lot of money. So let's say $5,000, okay, owed to the association. Now we cannot close. So either the seller comes up with the money, which if they're doing a short sale, most likely they don't have the money, or the buyer would have to come up with the money. Sometimes they want to come up with the money. Sometimes they say, no, this is the maximum amount that I'm paying. Or we would have to go back to the short sale negotiation to see if the bank is willing to pay for those $5,000. Sometimes the bank will say, yes, I will pay it, but this is going to have a delay in closing. If we know all of this information from the beginning, we can include it when we submit the short sale to the bank, okay? So if we know this information from the beginning, we're going to avoid having delays at the time of closing, okay? So also, this also happens with liens. Let's say a lien with a credit card, okay? How are we supposed to know that there's a lien with a credit card if it's not disclosed to us? Now, if all of this is information is disclosed from the beginning of a short sale, we're gonna put all of this to the bank and we're gonna negotiate with the bank to try to have them pay as much as possible. Now, if they tell us, no, I cannot pay the $5,000 that is owed to the association, at least we know it in the short sale negotiation and not when we already have an approval letter and we are anxious to close. If we know in the negotiation stage that the bank is not going to pay for HOA dues or for some other thing, we have time to negotiate within the parties, okay? Another important topic to talk about when doing a short sale, and not only a short sale, it only applies for regular deals as well. Probates, okay? When the seller or the owner in title is deceased and that person didn't leave a will, probate will apply, okay? Because everybody knows what probate is? Yes, no? I guess yes. Okay, so probate will need to apply and the judge will need to determine who can sell the property, okay? Probates can take between 4 to 6 months. So we can process a short sale without having probate finalized yet, but it's very important that once we get to closing, that probate has been finished and we know who's the authorized person to sell that property, okay? Also, if we know from the beginning that the seller is deceased and that there is no will, we're gonna tell you immediately, okay, please start your probate process so it can be done simultaneously while processing the short sale. So that way we don't get to closing, we get a short sale approval and then we cannot close because of probate. Remember that when we get short sale approvals, the majority of the time they give us 30 to 45 days to close. So if we get an approval and now a probate needs to start, guess what? That short sale that we've been waiting for 3 or 4 months, it's gonna start again. Okay, so all of these little things are very important to know from the beginning to avoid having delays. Also, when it's a short sale and okay, now surprise, probate needs to start, that price that the short sale lender had approved, most likely it's not going to be the same after the probate ends. Okay, so that's another thing for you to keep in mind. I don't know how many of you are realtors, but sometimes you see in the MLS, it says approved short sale. That's very, very misleading because yes, it could have been approved a year ago, but that doesn't mean that if we start the short sale again a year like today and a short sale was approved a year ago, that doesn't mean that the price that was approved a year ago is going to be approved again. Okay, it can go up and it can go down as well. So that's very misleading. So don't let you catch your eyes when you see short sale approved, because a whole new short sale will need to get started with once a short sale gets not closed on the other side. So all of these things like probate, not disclosing mortgages, not disclosing association debts, not disclosing debts that they can have with credit cards, with the city, all of these things, if they get disclosed from the beginning, we can structure the file correctly and guide you through the correct way of doing a short sale or doing a regular deal to avoid having delays once the short sale gets approved or once the file gets to closing. Okay. Now, incomplete short sale packages. Like I mentioned at the beginning, there are a lot of documents that need to be completed when doing a short sale. The majority of the documents need to be completed by the seller, okay? We are here to help those sellers get those documents complete if they need us to, like if they have any questions, if they don't know what is an income statement, if they don't know, let's say they tell us, okay, they're asking me for pay stubs, but I don't have any pay stubs because I don't work. Okay, let us know. We'll provide you with a letter that the homeowner will just need to sign saying that they don't have any pay stubs because they're currently unemployed. Because what happens if we submit a short sale that is incomplete? This will only delay the short sale process. Why? We submit an incomplete package to the bank, to the short sale lender. Finally, they get to review it and they're gonna see, okay, I see the contract, I see the listing agreement, but I don't see the pay stubs. What are they gonna do? They're just gonna take that file, put it on a side and tell us I cannot review it until I have a complete package. So right over there, only in that, it's 1 or 2 weeks of delay, because until we submit it to the lender, they have the time to review it. And then they tell us, no, it's an incomplete package. That's almost 1 week or 2 weeks of a delay. And I know that for the majority of the people, time is of the essence on a short sale. A lot of people decide to do a short sale when a sale date is about to come up. So we need to make sure that the closing occurs before the sale date. So if we get a complete package, once we submit it to the lender, to the short sale lender, they're gonna review it, complete package, they'll assign it to the negotiator, and it's gonna move much smoother than if we have an incomplete package. Also, we always recommend, and I know the majority of the files that come from RIA, they include like if there's any repairs that need to be done, they include them in the package that it's going to be submitted to us so we can send it to the bank. And a lot of the packages that come from RIA, they have like the checklist and they come already complete to us. So it's much more, much easier for us to just review, make sure that we have everything and just submit it to the lender. And this is going to avoid having a lot of delays once the short sale package is actually in the bank's hands. Okay. Now, we have some tips that we would like to go over with you, because we've seen this happening a lot of times when we're closing files. So realtors and parties sometimes say, okay, I'm gonna coordinate a closing time for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Okay, so we have people waiting to close, and guess what? Title company is not ready because they haven't received a report, or because they haven't when it's a short sale, we need to submit the final HUD for approval. And without that final approval, we cannot coordinate closing. So there's a lot of things that need to happen before the title company is clear to close and before we can coordinate closing, okay? Never allow clients to coordinate moving trucks or furniture delivery without a closing date set and until the transaction is disbursed. We've had situations where it's the day of closing, Friday, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. The bank hasn't given us the clear to close, and the buyers are already outside the sellers' houses with a truck ready to move in everything. And the seller says, I'm not giving the keys until I don't have the money in the account. So imagine the stress for all these people having a U-Haul truck outside with no place to go and not being able to go in because the seller doesn't have the money in their account. And it's Friday, 5 o'clock. It's not going to happen because the title company still doesn't have the clear to close, and it's already after 5. The wires don't go out after 5. So it's gonna be a mess for the whole weekend. So we just want to make sure that to not coordinate anything until the title company advises you that the file has been closed, okay? And understand what does it mean when a lender says loan is clear to close. When a lender tells you on the end that they're clear, it doesn't mean that the transaction is closing. It means that all of the requirements have been met, but now they need to start coordinating with the title company, numbers, getting out the package, all that. And sometimes that process can take 1 or 2 days. So once you hear it from the title company, that's when you're clear to close, because that's when the title company has the final numbers, and that's when the title company has the package. The buyers will need to sign, because without the package, there's no closing, okay? So we just need to make sure that when a lender tells you, okay, we are clear to close on our end, okay, they're clear to close, but that doesn't mean closing is happening that same day. There's still some steps that need to happen in order to get the buyers to the title company to get the file closed, okay? So those were the tips, and those were like a little bit of the scenarios and things that we've seen over the years that we wanted to share with you to try to avoid them and try to avoid them, to have a smooth closing. Having a smooth closing is the best thing we can have. When the closings have like last minute things, it's stressful for everyone. It's stressful for the buyers, stressful for the sellers, stressful for us as the title company. So what we want is to have a smooth closing, and what we want is for you as the buyers, as realtors, as sellers, to have the best experience when closing a file, and of course to get to the final stage, which is getting paid, which is important. And if you're the buyer, getting your property, of course.
Right, that's the best step. That's why we're all here, right? We wouldn't be here if we didn't want to get paid. You know, this is going to support us and, you know, bring us to where we need to go professionally and financially. So thank you so much, Clarita.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. And it's like always, you know, it's a pleasure working with Bria students, and having this type of webinars. It's always super fun. Hopefully we can start having them face to face.
Yes, we would love that soon. 2022, guys, stay on the lookout.
Exactly.
So we're going to answer a few last questions and wrap it up. So first question is, with significant price appreciation, do you really expect many short sales?
Yes, we do expect a lot of short sales coming our way, or going out in the market. I know the prices right now are super high, but eventually I don't think it's gonna be the same as 2007, 2008, but I do see like short sales have never stopped. So
Okay.
even if in 2007, 2008, they were a boom, 2010, 11, 12, up to right now, short sales still exist. It's just that a lot of people don't know they exist. So they just let the property go into foreclosure. Right now with COVID, there's a lot of people that faced a financial hardship. So I am sure that once they find out that they can do a short sale, I think short sales are gonna come up again.
Right. And real estate investing is great for so many different types of economies and boom and bust economies. So it's really great for, you know, us as investors and also for people who are homeowners as well. So that's excellent. All right, just a few more minutes. We'll have to go through this really quickly. So do you know if a client does a short sale for a certain amount of money, would that amount be considered the income to the buyer? Would they have to put that on their tax files, that certain amount?
Yeah. Okay, so yes, that's very important when somebody does a short sale and their deficiency gets waived, which is the most important thing that we do on a short sale. The homeowner will receive a 1099 at the end of the year, reflecting the amount that was let's say $200,000 was the original, like the amount of the debt. The short sale was approved for 100,000, so that difference is what the banks are gonna send the 1099 for. Now the good thing is that a lot of the times those 1099s, like that money gets waived, like for taxes, because when you're doing a short sale you're having a loss on the property. So I'm not an accountant and I don't know a lot about that, but I've heard, like from previous experience and all that income, yes, they do receive the 1099, but like an income, but it doesn't mean they have to pay taxes on that 1099, because when you do a short sale, you're getting a loss on the property.
Gotcha. Thank you so much. And last question is going to be, so you, Synergy, the title company, are you negotiating with the lender, or does the buyer's realtor negotiate with the lenders? And they're asking if a short sale requires a realtor.
No, short sales require a realtor, but just to prepare the contract. And if you're representing the seller, then to put the property on the market on the MLS. But after that, as long as the title company is authorized to speak on the seller's behalf, the title company can negotiate the short sale. And in our company, we're the ones who will negotiate the short sale on behalf of the seller.
All right, awesome. Okay, that's it,
And again,
everybody.
we don't charge.
Yep.
We don't charge anything for the short sale negotiation. Okay, we just need to be the
Awesome.
title company.
All right, great. So if you guys are excited and ready to close your deals, I know a lot of you guys are on your way to closing your deals. We hope that none of these worst case scenarios will come your way, but if they do, you know that you have the knowledge now, so that's great. We're going to have this up on our YouTube channel in a few days, so tune back in. We're going to send you the slides that we covered in today's presentation. So if you forgot something, if you weren't taking notes, that's okay. We'll send you that information. And when you're ready to do your deals, come back to Synergy. They're going to be waiving the fees for your first deal. So you get to save $675, right? Because that's why we're here, is to make money, but you make more money by saving money. So, and obviously Synergy is great. They know what they're doing. It's very, very clear. So thank you so much, Clarita.
No, thank you. And even if you're not closing with us and you have any questions or you need guidance, please feel free to contact us anytime, okay?
Yes, awesome. The real estate market's going to get very, very hot soon. So the eviction moratorium has been extended until July 31st. After that, there's going to be so many deals at your fingertips. Be ready. And if you're not ready yet, that's okay. Come to our boot camp. It'll be just about a week before the eviction moratorium lifts. So once you join our boot camp, hopefully you'll be able, no, we know you'll be able to go out and start getting those deals done, because your doors are going to be opening after the eviction moratorium is lifted July 31st. Our boot camp is July 24th and 25th. So after that, you'll be strapped and ready to go to enter into this even more booming market, and help yourself, and then also help like your community and things like that. That's just something that we do as real estate investors. Really, it's not, it's a mutually beneficial situation for yourself and for your community members. So thank you so much. This was always so informative.
Thank you.
Look
so
out
much.
for our welcome email, everybody. Our thank you email. We'll have all of this and so much more for you guys. So thanks so much. See you next time. See you on thank you on July 7th, Wednesday, for our next monthly meeting.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Have
Thank
a great
you.
rest of your day.
You
Have
too,
an
and
awesome week. We'll see you all next week on Wednesday night. Have a great one.
You too.
Bye-bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Fidelity.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.